Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the third episode of RCO Retro Client Overview. If you have not already seen the first and second episodes, this is a series on old and discontinued clients, some of which were popular clients that were used by a lot of players, while others are lesser known private clients that never made it into the public eye. Today's episode is going to be focused on the Glow client. There is actually a lot of very interesting history behind this client. It was the first client to implement a bow bomb feature, and the client was later cracked by Bubba J and OX22, one of the future client devs. But before we get to all of that, I want to take a second to shout out the legends that support my work. These videos take a lot of time to make and would not be possible without the support from everyone on screen now. If you enjoy my content, please consider joining them, it really does help. Thanks guys, let's get into the video. After posting the first episode in this series on the Xstaff client, I got a DM from the creator of the Glow client, Glowskie. I asked him about the Glow client and he answered all of my questions and provided me with some old media along with some old client builds, so later in the video we can take a look at different versions of the Glow client to see how it matured into its final form. But first, for context, let me tell you more about the Glow client. The client was only ever shared with a small group of around 20 players, though later on, near the end of the client's development, it was leaked and became more public. The client started out as a fork of the well-known and popular ForgeHax, but later Glowskie would completely rewrite the client from scratch with a custom base while copying over some of the custom modules and work that he had previously done. The Glow client was also very innovative for its time and proved to be a very powerful tool for those lucky enough to be given access to the client. It is also worth noting that Glowskie himself told me that no version of the Glow client was ever ratted or contained any malicious code. This seems to check out with everything I found online, though I'm not sure if this includes the cracked version of the client. Regardless, I have linked both the cracked version of the Glow client and the official one provided by Glowskie himself. I have also included some of the older client builds in case anyone watching wants to try out any of these old clients. In the interest of being transparent, I am, like always, running these clients in a virtual machine, even though I am fairly confident that they are safe to use. So there are actually two versions of this client, GlowHax and Glow client, with GlowHax being the fork of ForgeHax and the Glow client being its own client with a custom base. Unfortunately, the file for GlowHax is broken and does not load, so I am not able to look at or compare this version to later builds of the client. The earliest working jar file I was given was Glow client 1.6 pre-final, which we will compare to the last ever official release of the client, which was Glow client 1.0.4 final. So starting with the 1.6 pre-final version, the jar file I was given dates back to the 6th of June 2018. Upon opening the GUI for the first time, my exact thoughts were, wow, this looks a lot like RussiaHack. The blue color, the blue line and background in module settings, it all looks so familiar. Though as far as I'm aware, this is all purely a coincidence. It really does surprise me how complete and functional these clients feel, and I know I said this in my last video on the root client, but I've seen modern clients that offer less and function worse, so these old clients really are impressive to me. All of the modules have nice descriptions and most of the modules have settings. Everything looks good and functions surprisingly well. The client also comes bundled with a world download tool, which I think is pretty cool. Now let's load up the last ever release, Glow client 1.0.4 final. This file dates back to the 20th of June 2019, making this release almost exactly 1 year older than the previous build. If we load up the version that was cracked, we get this funny message stating that it was cracked by Bubba J. We will come back to this later in the video, but for now let's take a look at what has changed. Right off the bat, there are a lot of new modules. To be specific, there are 22 new modules, while 7 modules have been removed or reorganized into other modules. A lot of the modules have additional settings. Crystal Aura, for example, now has a cami mode, which is kind of funny after covering root and the cami client in my previous video. This apparently is not just a copy of the cami client's Crystal Aura, but rather a tweaked and slightly improved version of it. The world download tool also looks slightly different now. Overall, visually not a lot has changed, but the client has definitely improved and expanded a lot between the two versions of the client. Glowskie told me that he was a long-time 2B2T player and that sometime in mid-2017 he started a base with a few friends. This base would be known as Phoenix Base. Sadly, I can't find any world downloads or additional information on this base. Anyways, one of the base mates known as Charlie decided to create a custom client for the group named after the base. Glowskie told me that this was super exciting to him as it was something that he had always wanted to do himself. Sadly, the Phoenix client never really got developed and the project kinda died before it even got started. Glowskie was still excited about the idea of a custom client and tried to learn Java, but with no previous coding experience, the task of learning how to code with Java turned out to be quite difficult. Later that year, sometime in October 2017, Glowskie was invited to a new base created by a group known as the Imperium. The base was named Empire's Edge, and world downloads of this base can still be found on the 2B2T archive server. While at this base, Glowskie found out about an open source client named ForgeHax. This is an open source Forge based hack client made for Minecraft 1.12.2. He decided to download the client's source code and attempted to modify it rather than starting a new client from scratch. This was an easier way for him to learn how clients worked. He tinkered with modules, and apparently the first change he made was modifying the yaw lock module by adding an option to lock the yaw every 90 degrees rather than every 45 degrees. During his time at Empire's Edge, Glowskie became more comfortable with ForgeHax and with coding in Java. He changed the ForgeHax theme, added custom rendering, added a better click GUI and his own keybind system. He named this custom fork of ForgeHax GlowHax. This was the passion project that taught Glowskie how clients worked and gave him a decent understanding of the Java coding language. Now, with the better understanding of everything, Glowskie started experimenting with new custom modules that had not been created before. He ended up creating the first working packetfly on 2B2T. Others had attempted to create this module, but the server would always kick you for flying. Glowskie tried adding a slight glide to prevent server kicks, and it worked. He could fly around in 2B2T without getting kicked. While experimenting with this module, he discovered that while flying, if he shot a bow and arrow straight down, the arrow had extreme velocity and would deal insane damage to players. Glowskie named this bow bombing and would end up using this to help fellow members of the Imperium during Crystal PvP battles. Glowskie would fly around above enemy players, spamming them with arrows and leaving them with little to no health. Around this time in May 2018, Empire's Edge was found and griefed. Glowskie now felt much more comfortable coding in Java and decided to create his own client from scratch. He named this new project the Glow Client. He imported over some of the work that he had done on GlowHax and began creating new and innovative modules. Here are some of the modules that Glowskie told me about. Source Remover. This module removed all nearby liquid source blocks. Color Science. This module allowed you to type color codes on signs. Schematica Printer. This module added an NCP bypass for the Schematica Printer mod. Boat Travel. This module let you phase through the world with a boat, and it let you travel at insane speeds. At the time, you could travel 1,600 blocks a second, which is absolutely ridiculous. New Chunks. This was apparently one of the first working new chunk modules after the concept was introduced by the Future client. Crystal Bot. This module took the auto crystal from the Kami client and added a few small modifications to boost interaction, making it slightly better. Glowskie went on to tell me how the Glow client was always a passion project and that some of the custom modules he created, like the bow bombing module or the boat fly module, made the client fairly well known, even though the client's user base was very small. At the time, only Glowskie himself, the Dark Emperor, Mort Amos and Iron Golem 43 had access to the client. Though later, sometime near the end of 2018, Glowskie wanted to take a break from Minecraft and Anarchy in general. He did not want his hard work to go to waste, so he decided to add HWID detection. He also obfuscated the client's source code and created a simple installer. After adding these features, he slowly started giving more users access to the client, with the final client user base being somewhere around 20 players. It was not long before one of these new users, Nick Has Cancer, leaked a client jar file to one of the Future client devs, OX22, and to the infamous Bubba J. They then cracked the client's authentication and released the Glow client to the public, and this explains the message cracked by Bubba J when launching the cracked version of the Glow client that I was originally given. With Glowskie taking a break from 2B2T and Anarchy in general, no further work was ever released on the Glow client, and this cracked version stands as the last ever Glow client release. Since all of this, Glowskie has gotten a degree in C# and has recently returned back to the Anarchy community. He told me that he now wants to work on a new client with his updated skill set and that he wants to name this new client after the original Phoenix client that started everything, but that never really got off the ground. He then shared a link to the GitHub for this new Phoenix client. He did warn me that this client is still in development and that it may still have some issues while it is being worked on, though he did also tell me that the client already has one of the fastest working Elytrafly modules available for 2B2T. I'm not going to cover this new client here, I'll save that for an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. In conclusion, the Glow client represents a remarkable journey of innovation and passion, with the client being remembered very positively from those lucky enough to have used it. The Glow client started out as a fork of ForgeHax before later being rewritten with its own custom base. The client offered a lot of unique and interesting modules that gave its users an untold advantage in game, from the bow bomb module to the boat fly module that let its users travel at around 1600 blocks a second. Even with a small user base of around 20 players, the client made a name for itself through its innovation and powerful modules. It is sad that the client was eventually cracked, leaked and discontinued, but then again I am very excited for the new Phoenix client. If Glowskie was able to do all of this with limited knowledge of Java, imagine what he'll be able to create now with a formal degree in C#. I really am excited to see what he does with the Phoenix client. Anyways, that is enough rambling for one day. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I have been your boy KiLAB. Peace in the Middle East.